Blog Talk Radio.
Following ingredients include a look behind the scenes. Cook uncovered until hot. Add grooves to taste.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl.
The accident was over a year ago. A second woman has been elected president. The 12th planet has been named in the solar system. The last wild polar bear has died. I slept through it all. I was here for my waking. He called it a beginning. He said it was good. I think he may have thought that anything I did was good.
Welcome to Transition Radio, live from Hollywood, Florida, with your host and hostess, Mark Angelo and Jessica Lynn Cummings. Show for trans folks by trans folks, here to let your voice be heard.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Transition Radio, live from Well Manors, Florida. That's right, live on wet. Again, we've had so much rain for the past few weeks that I'm beginning to think we are in Seattle. Well, anyway, tonight we've got Tim Westmoreland. He grew up in a small town in Alabama where change is unacceptable. He says people in the South may say they accept change with open arms, but change is only acceptable if it happens to be going backwards. But before we bring him on, we want to thank our sponsor.
TheBreastFarmStore.com. They have everything you need for your cross-dressing or transgender needs. Visit their website and tell them Transition Radio sent you.
Tim says, I find myself today surrounded by many cultures and styles of living. I decided to embrace everyone with open arms. People, regardless of acceptance, need to feel needed. This is hardwired into our minds. I set out on a quest to find my place in this world. I have traveled, lived, and associated with folks who would be considered the outsider to normal human life. I myself am straight.
But why do we have to wear labels? I don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. As long as you know who you are and I know who I am, then are we not just two people living our lives? This is the philosophy I have lived by, loved by, and practiced. I don't understand a lot of times why we have to wear labels. Say, for example, if a man says he is a woman trapped in a man's body, he is considered transgender, correct? If that same man associates with gay men, he is considered gay.
But if that man gets to change his life and go through the hours, weeks of pain to change his sex from male to female, so she can now be with a man, would she not then be considered straight? This is the paradox we live in within our cultural society that concentrates on labels. When I decided to undertake the Undertalk series, it was a decision that my wife and I, as a straight married couple, decided to do so, that barriers of labels could be lifted.
The series shows people just like you and me who have made their mind up and took on unfathomable strides to drop the label they were born with and pursue what makes them feel alive and like themselves.
It's said your life is a book. What are your pages? We must drop the labels so that other folks can come untaught. Now, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim Westmoreland.
Hey, y'all. How are y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing great. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm glad to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
So have we.
Can y'all hear okay on that end?
We hear everything's A-okay. You sound good.
You sound good.
Perfect.
So are you still in Alabama, Tim?
Yes. Born and bred and raised here. Glad to be in Alabama. but wishing things would change in the South as well as across the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very difficult to realize in this day and age, or it's 2013, that there are parts of our country, not even to mention the world, that people still have a hard time accepting people for who they are.
I mean, it is. I mean, it really is. I mean, people nowadays, I mean, with the knowledge that we have and the changes that we went through in the past, it's hard to believe that people still don't accept themselves as well as each other.
It's very sad. So why do you think that some people are hardwired to hate what is different? Because I've seen that. I mean, it's from the time you're little, if you're one color different from somebody else, you're taught to hate that person because they have a different color, or because they like to wear different clothing, or because they eat different food, or because they have different sexual preference, or because they identify differently. Why do you think we're hardwired that way?
Well, why does a child hate lettuce? You know, why does a child not want to eat vegetables? It's because they're not willing to open themselves up to something different. I mean, you know, if we don't embrace different things, then we're never going to learn. We're never going to accept what is different. We as adults, I mean, we don't sit here and we don't like certain car brands because we haven't driven them, or we don't sit here and like this person and we don't even know anything about them. I mean, society has basically hardwired itself into us with everything that is backwards or different isn't right. So, I mean, as far as being hardwired to hate, it's because we're not willing to open up to examine different things. I mean, that's plain and simple.
Yeah, very true. Definitely. And do you think it's more of an upbringing, what our parents have taught us? I mean, I know that a lot of parents are very prejudiced towards certain things because their parents were, and it just goes on and on and on. It's like a vicious cycle. Do you think it's a learned behavior, or do you think it's a programmed behavior?
Well, we are a monkey see, monkey do type society. I mean, you know, you see your neighbor get that new lawnmower and you go, God, I wish I had a new lawnmower. You know, I think that as we are raised, it does consider, you know, the type of environment and the home that we're raised in. If you live in a house that's closed, then you're going to be closed-minded to certain things. But once people venture out and begin to experience different things and allow themselves to open up, then I think that we can rewire ourselves. But I do believe that it is an environmental style. What's the word I'm looking for? An environmental style. Oh, crap. Yeah, upbringing.
It's okay, you're having a blonde.
Huh?
I said it's okay, you're having a blonde moment. That's my job. Just have those all the time.
I am having one of those blonde moments. It's a medium, I guess, for how we think. You know, our environment of what we do when we grow up, and I think that does have a huge bearing on the way people think today in society.
Exactly. Well, what helped you be so understanding and accepting of others?
Well, I mean, you know, I wasn't a small child growing up, and myself, seeing how people treat you differently just because, I mean, how you look. I mean, it can be one of those mind-changing, heart-changing type things where you go, you know what, I'm not going to hold prejudice against different people just because of who they are. I mean, you've got to be able to allow yourself to enjoy life and enjoy people regardless of who they are. I mean, if I wanted to sit here and be closed-minded, I'd be afraid to leave the house. You'd never know who or what you'd come in contact with, you know? And so it's that type thinking of growing up and being different that allows me to be able to say, hey, you know what? I don't care who you are or what you do. I'm going to embrace you regardless. Now, if things between you and I change because of something you've done to me, now that's totally different. But just because you are who you are doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to you. Doesn't mean I'm not going to spend time with you.
And it seems, Tim, that this could go either way. I know a lot of groups that have been judged because of their color or whatever reason, and they turn around and become very judgmental of others. Instead of being understanding, they go the opposite route. So it could go either way, I guess. I mean, I was always an outcast. I always felt very different, and people really didn't like me because I was not like them. And I took your route that I decided it hurt too much to feel pushed away in my life, that I was going to be loving and accepting towards everyone that came my way. So
right.
I guess it could go both. Well, let's talk a little bit about On Top. And where did the idea come from to write this wonderful book, and seeing that you are a heterosexual man who is happily married? So what made you decide to write a book about
go ahead.
About the LGBT type of issues?
Well, my wife and I were sitting around one night, and we were just talking and joking around, and I have a best friend who is a lesbian. And, we try to spend time with her as much as possible, but she does have a busy life where she's got stuff, other things going on and whatnot. But we were sitting around, and I said, I want to do something that's going to make a difference. I said, anybody can go out here and write about this and write about that and write about birds and whatnot. And I said, I want to do something that means something. I mean, we all try to leave a legacy or make an imprint, at least on one person in this life. And my wife and I were sitting here talking about it, and I said, who I think is brave? And she was like, whom? And I said, drag queens. I said, but not only drag queens, I said, people who embrace what's different. I said, those who know who they are inside their own hearts and are willing to take on the struggles and the quote-unquote outcast unnorm, and they take it and run with it. I said, why don't we write a book about it? I said the book would be fun. The book would be entertaining as well as insightful. I said, people who pick up this book who are struggling with their own demons can read about what other people have went through, and, hey, they're still here and they're still fighting, so why can't I? And my wife said, hey, it sounds awesome. If you want to do it, let's do it. I mean, it was just plain and simple. I mean, it didn't really have anything to do with being gay or straight or anything in between. It was basically saying, hey, there are people here who have taken on unfathomable strides, and they have embraced what they know and feel as themselves. People's got to know about this. I mean, you can sit here and write a book about being transgendered or transsexual or straight or married or unmarried or single or anything, but what does it mean to you? And to me, it means embracing what's different. I mean, you've got to be able to know who you are before you can live your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of it is about being open-minded and being open to diversity, because the world has become such a diverse place over time, and people are starting to understand more that there's a lot of different people out there with different issues, different things that they're trying to find within themselves. And, the more you're open-minded and diverse and allowing yourself to come forward to these people, and, you could actually probably learn something as opposed to shunning away from them.
And it's great that coming from an individual who's heterosexual and considers himself fully straight and married is able to write a book that other straight people could read and say, okay, this is a book from a different perspective, and they might respect that opinion a little bit more.
Exactly.
There are still some organizations nowadays that are very close-minded, religion being one of them, the church. And I believe
they're starting to open up a little bit. But
I believe that once that organization opens up, I think the rest of humanity might open up as well.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tim, have you met many transgender individuals on your journey? And if so, what has been your experience with those individuals that you had contact with?
Oh, yes. I mean, in my regular life, I mean, I associate with everybody, regardless of creed or anything. And, I mean, there's been a few people that I've come across that were transgendered, and they had decided to go through the change and make that life-altering difference to make their life what they wanted it to be and what they knew that it was supposed to be. And I didn't know the difference. I didn't know that they were different from anything else. I mean, it was society that was to teach us to make it seem different. And when I found out, they had went through the change and whatnot, I was like, well, if you had never told me, I would have never known. I mean, that was plain and simple. And, in writing this book, I've come across individuals who take themselves transgendered or transsexual and whatnot. And if you didn't tell anybody about it, nobody would ever know, And I think the resilience that they've come with and face life with, I mean, that's what I like to take away as an experience from everybody I come in contact with, regardless of life. Life can be hard. It can be. But it's the experiences that we draw from each other that help us to understand the differences between each other, And
help us grow. It's all a learning process. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all the same, very boring world. But, society is very used to using label, and this limits us and creates separation. I always said that those in power benefit from dividing us so they can conquer. What is your take on this?
Well, it's just like saying you're a Ford and I'm a Chevy, Everybody wants to use a label because they want to feel like they belong to something when they belong all together regardless. The use of labels, I think, has gotten overused. I mean, it's okay for me to walk out and say, hey, I'm a straight man, I'm married to a straight woman and I'm good to go, But it's just a label, The labels that we use that have been pushed upon us by society and by people in power and whatnot are make us to feel like we have to classify to a certain group. And I'm sorry, but I'm classified as a human being. I don't know what anybody else wants to label and classify themselves, but I think as long as you're being human, you're being real, and you're being natural. As far as people in power using it to benefit from us, I think they're getting away with it, I don't know exactly how to explain myself any further. I mean, if you use a label, fine and dandy. But if you're going to use a label to try to put me into submission, can't do it, man.
It's the only way they could really conquer. If you look at our political system, it has two. Actually, there's three, but the Democrat and the Republican, and it's pretty much the wings belong to the same bird. And they do the whole division so that people could fight one another. You got a team, you got Team A, Team B, fighting one another. If everyone united and everyone realized that we all put one pant leg at a time, and when we die, we all go into that box and we get cremated, then we all realize that we are one, and if we stayed in harmony and peace, we would have a better world. But there are people that benefit from dividing us so that they could conquer and they could rule the world, and we could just be their little slaves. I mean, that's been my take on it. And I believe that people broke down those labels and realized that people are people, and it doesn't matter what you have in between your legs. Love is love, and it doesn't matter what gender you are. I believe more and more people will realize that we're actually prone to be bisexual or have some sort of curiosity, and we would make love, not war.
It's like that song, The Passion. People are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so awfully.
It's programming.
Exactly. I mean, as long as you are you and I am I, can't we just live as us?
Well, the problem is society holds way too much on labels and gender. The society is too label conscious, too gender conscious, and once you outstep that box and you don't worry about being label conscious or gender conscious, then you see people for who they really are instead of seeing their label, their whatever.
If you look at religion, there's one God. But how many different sectors or different religious beliefs there are. I mean, it's like, come on, people, it's one God. So, okay, you identify as Catholic, the other one identifies as Baptist, what is that other one, Episcopalian, or blah, 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 and on and on. There's just all these different, and it's like, oh, why can't we just learn to love ourselves, have faith in something higher than ourselves, and get along instead of killing one another, hurting one another? To me, it makes no sense.
Down to religion and the different types, I like to associate religion with the car industry, because everything is a car. I mean, it's either a car or it's a truck or it's a van or blah, blah, blah. It has 4 wheels and a motor and you ride in it. But there's different brands. Just because you're a different brand doesn't mean you're not the same thing.
Exactly. It gets you from point A to point B.
Exactly. We have a chat.
Exactly.
We have somebody in the chat room, Mackenzie. They say that they're here to support you, and the book is groundbreaking.
Mackenzie.
Hey, Mackenzie.
Yeah.
You can actually read Mackenzie's story in the book.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yes.
Definitely. Look forward to doing that.
She just turned around and said, "Hey, babe."
Hey. Love you.
So, Tim, what do you want to accomplish with your Untucked series?
Well, one of the main things that I want to accomplish with Untucked is I want to show that no matter what you see or do or feel in life, things can always be better or worse. Back in 2010, I remember a story of a young man who was in college, I believe it was in New York. He was filmed in his dorm room. He was, in the closet in his life. I mean, he didn't want nobody knowing that he was gay. He wasn't out or anything like that. And he was filmed by one of his roommates doing things with another guy, and then put it up on the computer. And a few days later, he couldn't deal with it, and he killed himself. And I want someone to be able to pick up this book, regardless of who they are and what they're going through, and be able to read about the struggles and the triumphs of these individuals in the book and go, hey, I can make it. If they can do it, I can do it. And know that there is a support system, regardless whether it's family or whether it's people you call family. I want them to know that there are people who have went through stuff and came out on top. I mean, you've got to be able to push through all the crap in this world and still know who you are and know that things will get better. That's what I want to accomplish with Untucked.
Awesome. That's a beautiful mission statement that you want. So tell our listeners where they can get a hold of your book and or get a hold of you, and also how they can help you complete this project.
Well, we are still working on getting the interviews for the book. It is from a Southern perspective. We're interviewing people and individuals here in the South because, I mean, we all know that the South is one of the hardest places, if not the hardest place, to take on these roles as individuals. So we are still working on it. We do need support. We have a publisher who's willing to take us national, and it will be available, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all their websites and whatnot. But we do need the help of everyone willing to back us, and we do have rewards. We've got our stuff on Kickstarter right now, trying to raise the remainder of the money. Anybody that wants to can go to www.untuckedbook, all one word, .com, untuckedbook.com. They can see a few pictures. They can watch the video, hear some commentary from some of the interviews with these individuals. And there's also a big K on the very first page of the website. You can click that. It takes you directly to Kickstarter, to our campaign. My Facebook is also linked to the Kickstarter site. Please go on there, friend request me. I will accept. Just check us out. My email is also located on the website at untuckedbook.com. You can email me with questions. Nothing's too taboo.
And funny enough, we were just on that show.
Yeah, I know. Right?
I know. I watched the segment. It was awesome.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, it's been a pleasure having you on our show, and please, listeners, support the Untucked series. This is a very important project. We want to break down the walls and barriers of prejudice and hate. We want to be able to live in a world that will look at you for your color, your race, your preferences, or how you identify. We want to live in a world of love, compassion, and peace.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you. You guys rock, and remember to always live untucked.
That's right.
Hey, well, I don't know about the untucked part.
What's the word? Formality untucked, I guess.
There you go. All right.
Y'all be good.
You too, Tim.
Have a good one, Tim.
We want to make an announcement. Yes, thank you, Tim. We want to make an announcement. That is, we'll try to make our announcements. The Pride Center of Wilton Manors presents the Spiritual Healing and the Transgender Soul Series, Free Talk Tuesdays. This one starts on June 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Center, or the Pride Center, at 2040 North Dixie Highway in Wilton Manors. There's a half-day intensive energy work seminar on June 29th at 10:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. The cost is $95, and this is also at the Pride Center. Pre-registrations are appreciated. You could call at 303-859-8644. Again, that's 303-859-8644, or visit their website at www.theomflow.com. That's THEOMFLOW.com.
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." Discussions about medical care for the transgender population typically cover hormone therapies and surgery options, completely neglecting an entire facet of care that is absolutely critical for the health and well-being of the individual. The emotional and spiritual journey of gender reassignment.
On Tuesday, June 25th, from 7 to 9 p.m., Todd Garrity, the licensed acupuncturist, will be discussing healing and caring for the transgender soul and the importance of connecting with one's spiritual self throughout the transition process and beyond. Transition is merely a physical manifestation of a deeper connection with our true selves, he says. I was raised to believe I was someone I am not. It took a lifetime of suffering to realize the only thing holding me back from my true self was fear.
The spiritual evolution is the most important aspect of transition, in his opinion. Whether you choose to physically transition or not, the spiritual connection with the yin and yang energy, the masculine and feminine aspects of your being, is the most crucial.
Garrity works with patients in treating conditions ranging from chronic pain, psychological imbalances, HIV, cancer, spiritual growth, both in person from his clinic in Denver, Colorado, and distance sessions all over the world via Skype or FaceTime.
He describes in depth in his half-day intensive seminars how quantum healing works to facilitate energetic changes in the body without the need for needless or herbal therapy.
For needles. Needles. I feel blessed to have lived the life I have in order to be a vessel to help others in their spiritual journey. I actually very much relate to this whole theory because I've been talking about the transgender experience as a spiritual experience beyond the physical, and I believe in a human evolution.
I've always said that us transgender individuals are angelic. And I've said that,
and that's how our transition radio got started with Angel Wings.
Absolutely.
We are going to try to have him on our show a few weeks from now. I'm trying to see if I either get him on the TV show or the radio show. But definitely look out for this wonderful gentleman who will definitely inspire me. Mr. Garrity.
And thank you, everybody in the chat room, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone in the chat room. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Stay tuned for next week, another show, Thursday night, our TV show, live on Not TV. And we have Nancy from Gender Dances and that's going to be a very interesting show. Well, guys, have a great weekend. Be safe. Drive careful if you drink. And we love you. But remember to always love yourselves, too. Good night, everyone. We got it.
We just missed the ending. We almost
All
had
right.
it. Perfect.
All right, guys. Take care. And here is our little song that I love so much.